Yes, it is true that the volcanism that we see on Mars is deep in its past. There doesn't appear to be volcanic activity going on today, but there are some strange things going on. There are places where methane is being emitted from the surface of Mars. So there are some very interesting processes going on in the subsurface. And at the moment, we've only done a very small sampling of the surface. We've been able to image some of the properties of the surface and detect some things coming out from it. But there's an awful lot of things we don't know yet. So those possibilities are very much still open. But you're right that if we had a situation where you have very active hot sources, hot springs and so on, those kinds of settings are possibly where life first evolved on Earth. Well, there's one very intriguing moon is the sixth moon of Saturn, which is Enceladus, and that is completely white. Oh, actually, by the way, we don't think that Snowball Earth was completely white because we've actually got evidence that it was quite arid on the surface, and so there were areas of bare ground on the surface, and that there has been a misconception that the Earth was completely white. But actually, Enceladus is completely white, and so it's made of various kinds of ice, and there are big cracks in the surface, and through fissures in the surface, there are spurt jets of all kinds of things. All kinds of simple gases coming out from the surface, and indeed we suspect organic molecules as well. So there is certainly liquid, we think liquid water, underneath that very, very cold icy surface of Enceladus. So that's another really, really intriguing place where life as we know it could conceivably be present if it had been able to get there in the first place. Well, I think we ought to be thinking of more than one definition, I think. So, of course, everything we do is anthropocentric by definition. So we are interested in planets that we can colonize, particularly if we trash this one and find we can't live here anymore. So the term habitable planet is often used to refer to the conditions that you would need to sustain human life. But of course you could sustain human life inside sealed buildings, of course. It wouldn't be life as we know it now, being able to walk around in the sunshine and the outside. But there are quite a range, even in our own solar system, we know that humans could survive on Mars. It's got a reasonable amount of gravity. The air is too thin to breathe. You'd have to go outside in a spacesuit. So, that might be regarded as good enough to be habitable. But if you want a planet that's really just right, then the best thing is to look after this one, of course. Around other stars, there's a certain range of conditions that would be regarded as making a planet habitable, and the most important thing is to have temperatures that are suitable for liquid water, because we know this facilitates all manner of activities in relation to life as we know it. So typically that refers to a range of distances from the star in relation to the energy that the star outputs. But also atmosphere is important. Mars has this very thin atmosphere. Venus has a very thick atmosphere, very rich in carbon dioxide. So even if it were a bit further from the sun, its atmosphere would suffocate us. So we have co-evolved with the atmosphere that we have on the Earth today. So it's actually quite difficult to think of finding a planet which is just right for us to breathe the air, for example, if there hasn't previously been life forms like us present on that planet. You could extend the definition more widely to include the conditions that are suitable for microbes, and if so, of course, the habitable zone becomes much wider.